Endaoment.org. And we're here today to talk to you guys about programmable on-chain philanthropy. Hot off the presses, we have a bunch of new tools available for you guys to be able to integrate programmatic philanthropy into your smart contract suite, into your DApp, into your app, into your website. However you can dream up of incorporating impact into the work that you do day in and day out. Our goal at Endaoment is to make it easy for you. And so today we're going to spend some time going over what these new tools mean, how they're meant to be used. We'll do some demos, and we'll also do a little bit of workshopping if the vibe feels right. So come on down if you're out in the crowd and you're interested in learning about impact and in the blockchain space. This is going to be a really fantastic session for you to check out. And yeah, welcome everybody. Hope you're having a great BITL week so far. And it's an honor to be here and to be in front of all of you and to be advocating for impact across the Web3 space. So a quick overview of our agenda for today. We're going to start with a high-level overview of Endaoment. What most people don't know what Endaoment is, and that's totally reasonable. And so we're going to spend some time just making sure we're all on the same page about what our community foundation is here to do. And then we'll go over 3 new tools that we've just released. Came out on Thursday last week. These are some of the freshest developer tools in the space right now. And we'll spend time going through each one of them. We'll spend some time going through examples, show you what resources are out there, how you can get acquainted or learn more, and just show off a little bit of the power of what we've built here. And then we'll jump into a workshop time. And you know, we'll have a little bit of fun with it, as referenced by our herbaceous title here. Yeah, woo. All right, so Endow what? Great question. Endaoment is crypto's community foundation. We are a tax-exempt 501c3 nonprofit public charity based out of California. And we serve as the crypto community's community foundation. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, community foundations are philanthropic financial institutions. They exist to enable a community's philanthropic goals by providing financial services that are specifically geared towards tax exemptions or towards impact-based outcomes like impact investing, revocable grants, donor-advised funds, community field of interest funds, all sorts of different primitives for generating impact around a community that shares values. And our goal in creating Endaoment was to say that the crypto community has its own unique set of values, and it needs its own unique community foundation to serve its goals, its philanthropic goals. And rather than trying to build for existing community foundations like Fidelity Charitable or Schwab Charitable or the Silicon Valley Community Foundation or any of the other thousands of community foundations that exist in the world, we said crypto deserves its own. And so we built Endaoment.org early in 2020, late in 2019, and launched to the public in 2020. And since then, we've seen remarkable generosity from the broader crypto community. Our lifetime impact has just greatly surpassed our expectations, and we're so excited for what this means about the value space and the sort of core components of this community's care and impact in their broader neighborhood. And so over the last 2.5-ish years, we've raised just under $52 million in charitable donations. Yeah, that's a big deal. Great job, everybody. Thank you for supporting causes that matter to you. This has happened across over 1.2K total donations. Easier said is like around 1,200 individual donations. Now this doesn't include individual NFT mints. We've had also bulk donations that have happened across many thousands of mints. So this number is probably low by like a factor of 10 when you include individual mints of NFTs as counting as one little micro donation. But we like to think of them about like in the context of the larger overarching different donation events. And so just a really impressive set of activities from the broader crypto community. We're very, very proud of that. And Endaoment represents also the largest Rolodex of nonprofit Ethereum addresses. One of the things we hear all the time is, who knows what charities accept crypto? And with Endaoment, that question is sort of wiped off the face of the earth. 2,600 different nonprofits have onboarded into Endaoment. That means they've linked some form of payment to their smart contract escrow address. But any nonprofit can have a smart contract address, because what we have built in Endaoment is a comprehensive on-chain donation interface that creates escrow contracts for every single 501c3 that's in good standing with the IRS. So if the nonprofit exists, you can give to it without them having to know how to accept crypto in the first place. And that's tremendously powerful adoption mechanism for the Ethereum ecosystem, but also for nonprofits who are commonly left behind when it comes to adopting new technology, especially new payment technology. And the way that our system works is that every single nonprofit gets a smart contract address. And that smart contract address serves as effectively a smart wallet for that nonprofit. And so every single contract address that we deploy is in and of itself a little donation home for the nonprofit in question. And when money arrives at that contract address, whether that's just straight ETH or ERC20s, or if it's a stable coin, or if it's a grant from one of our community funds or donor advised funds, we alert the nonprofit to the presence of capital at that escrow address. And it's at that point that we onboard them into the ecosystem. So it's this fantastic method of putting a carrot in front of a nonprofit to come and adopt crypto. And it's been very exciting. Oftentimes we'll reach out to orgs and we'll say, hey, for instance, you have $20,000 here waiting for you, and it was a gift from crypto. And they'll say, we don't accept crypto. And we'll say, well, actually, there's a mechanism out there for you to accept crypto, and it's called Endaoment. And so if you have a nonprofit that you care about, you can go and search for them on Endaoment right now and deploy a contract address for them on their behalf. And when you deploy that contract address for them on their behalf, we automatically send them an email and say, you now accept crypto. But also when they receive capital, we will reach out to them again, inform them that that capital is there, and process either a wire payment or a transfer of USDC to their wallet address. About 95% of the organizations that we've onboarded accept bank wires, but a growing number of them are accepting grants from Endaoment through stablecoins, and we're really excited to see that number drive down. But the main takeaway that I'd love for this group to know is that you don't need a nonprofit to already accept crypto to give them crypto. The infrastructure that we've built at Endaoment is meant to make that effortless for you, the donor, and a no-brainer for the nonprofit in question, because we're just sending them dollars. So that's a little bit about Endaoment. Very exciting infrastructure, but how do we get it into the hands of developers? And how do we turn it into something that's integrated into the fabric of this growing ecosystem of different financial tools that exists in the broader Ethereum ecosystem? And so this past week, we announced 3 new tools for creating on-chain programmable philanthropy. And what we've aimed to do with these 3 new tools is to make it as easy as possible for you to split some amount of the revenue that you're generating on your platform, or make donations straight from your portfolio manager, or build dashboards easily to track the amount of impact that's happening in the Ethereum ecosystem. Oh, that's wonderful. I love when that happens. Bear with me. Yes, if you're wondering what I'm going to present to you today, pretty much everything that we'll present to you today is available on the sheet that's sitting in front of you on your table. There are QR codes there for you to easily, oh, thank you. There are QR codes there for you to easily be able to pull up some of the info that we have here. And what I'll do is I'll look to our friends in the back there and ask them for a favor, which is to help me figure out what's going on here. When in doubt, unplug it, plug it back in. Bear with me for a second. Love that. I don't think it's the... We're going to restart the machine here. Just see if that helps our cause a little bit. While we're sitting here, I would encourage everyone to take a minute to read through that sheet. Yeah, it just seemed to go blank. I don't know. That's a good sign. There we go. Ha-ha. Yay! That's a nice view of my calendar for you. Let me just get Keynote back up here. It's a race. I got it. Ha-ha. And we're back. Okay, nothing like a technical difficulty to keep a workshop moving, right? Okay, so what we've announced are 3 different tools. First off is a SDK. So for those of you who are TypeScript or React developers, this is probably the best place for you to start. It's 1 to 2 lines of code, and we'll connect with your existing Web3 infrastructure and effectively format transactions for you. That's the main point of the SDK. The API is a public, free, basically keyless. It's like entirely wide open. It's like a ping it as much as you want situation, and we'll come and find you if you abuse that situation. But it's a more customizable endpoint for you to integrate some of the data that's available in the SDK. The SDK is effectively a wrapper for the API. So the SDK makes it easier for you to integrate these different kinds of contract calls straight into your app. But if you're a little more advanced, or if you want something a little more customizable, the API is a great endpoint for you to leverage in order to sort of build the application that you want to build. And lastly, we would be lost without our commitment to decentralization. And so we wanted to make sure that we built a robust subgraph as well to support finding contract addresses and surfacing statistics about the endowment ecosystem. So we'll take these one at a time. I'll talk through some of their features, and then for each of these 3 tools, we have either a sandbox or a playground or some Swagger documentation to show you. And so we'll spend some time kind of clicking through those as well over the course of this demo. Really, the way we think about the SDK that we've built is as an SDK for public good. This is really meant to help you incorporate giving straight into your app. If you are building a DAO or an NFT platform or a DeFi protocol or anything where you want to give users the option to direct some amount of assets to a specific cause or organization or even their own donor-advised fund at Endaoment, this SDK is for you. It's JavaScript and TypeScript compatible. It's an easy single-line install with NPM. And we provide the largest currently available on-chain Rolodex of nonprofit contract addresses that are tax exempt. So if you're integrating with us versus another API provider, I think the advantage here is that you can be rest assured that this will be the largest available list of nonprofit addresses and a growing list that's incentivized through people doing deployments over time. We're also working on international giving and bringing in another 3,000 to 5,000 nonprofits that exist outside of the US. Right now, these 2,600 nonprofits that we support are inside the US. But ultimately, this SDK is built for you guys, the biddlers of the crowd. And we think that it's a really powerful tool for you to be able to sort of incorporate impact in a sprint or less. That was our goal internally, was to make a resource that was so easy to plug in that all you had to do was pop in an SDK package, format up your transaction at the moment that you're formatting your transaction for the user in whatever sort of regular interaction that they do inside your app, whether that's a mint action or a deposit or redemption action. We really wanted to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to direct assets to a nonprofit at the moment where you've already engineered a redirect of funds to either an EOA or to some other pool or to a treasury. And so to show you a little bit more about this, I'm gonna hook back up to this guy here. And what I want to do is show you guys the main example set that we've put out, the main developer resource that we've put out for folks to use when trying to understand what they should do with their application. Love this. I'm going to audible. Love it. Love it, love it. We had internet when we started. Okay. Okay, we're getting closer. Bear with me. Live demos. What a treat. Yes, I do name all of my devices after my hair color. You're getting an intimate look into the life of Robbie Heger's devices here. So just give me a second while we figure out the internet situation here. Okay, sick. All right, we're going to keep going, and we're going to go through all the tools at once at the end. So the other tool that we've released here is the API endpoint. And the API endpoint is meant to take all of the features that exist in the SDK and provide them at a public, available, open, free endpoint for you to integrate with. What are those features exactly? Those features are, first off, finding organization contracts easily. So you can search the endowment database by either EIN, if you know the EIN of the nonprofit, or you can just search like with keyword terms. We have full text searching of over 90,000 nonprofits that are currently in our database, of which are those 2,600 deployed ones. And if we have a contract address for that nonprofit, we'll return that to you and give you the associated metadata with that contract address. So you're not just getting this hash back, you're getting the hash with the name of the organization, the town that it's located in, its EIN, a description about it, its logo. You can build really nice search boxes very easily just using the SDK or the API to get back that structured data about the nonprofit. We also allow you to search through our public funds. So we have a series of community funds. These are community field of interest funds. We also have a series of donors who have chosen to make their donor advised funds public. And donor advised funds are like individual giving funds. Think of them as like charitable checking accounts in some ways. They're a little bit different, but that's like a good mental model for them. And so we will also surface public funds as well when needed or when desired, for people to be able to say like, okay, I don't actually want to give to one specific nonprofit. I'd rather give to this fund that serves as an aggregator for grant making to multiple nonprofits. And the idea here is that we give users choice, that we give them choice and flexibility. The API, as well as the SDK, will also create contract calls for you. So it will formulate the sort of data object for an Ethereum transaction for how to properly interact with the endowment contract address. We use Uniswap's autorouter to automatically liquidate donations. And the SDK and the API both will sort of grab the call data necessary for you to be able to go out and successfully process a swap and donate function call. And coming soon, we're looking to integrate the full end-to-end endowment account management experience into the API and SDK. So people could open funds, link a private fund, be able to make grants, which is when you give out from your fund. So really exciting feature set for people in the portfolio management space, right? So like places like Zapper, or Xerion, or wallet providers as well, to be able to say like, okay, we want to make a tab that in our app that says donate on it, and in there we want to be able to say if your wallet's connected, we're going to go out and fetch your donor advised fund from Endaoment, so that you can have a full viewpoint, a bird's eye view on your philanthropic activity inside of our portfolio tracking app, which is also very exciting to us. We're really looking forward to that. That's the API. We'll dive into the example after we talk about our third example, which is after we talk about our third tool, which is the subgraph. Also, just released last week, we have a brand new subgraph on the Graph network. And really what this is meant to primarily do is to serve as a mechanism for surfacing statistics and on-chain data about the activity that's happening in the endowment ecosystem. So the ability to quickly understand what are the top recipient nonprofits in the endowment ecosystem, or what is the largest donor advised fund, or what portfolio positions are funds entered into, and how much capital is locked up in investments at the community foundation versus been granted out of the community foundation, and where are those investments being held, and sort of what portfolios are they locked into. So the subgraph is this really phenomenal mechanism for us to be able to enable developers to build dashboards around the impact that's happening in not only the endowment ecosystem, but like the broader Ethereum ecosystem writ large. Okay, let's spend some time going through examples. We're going to try examples one more time. Let's see if we got internet Hey, we have internet. Fantastic. Maybe. Oh, you have it here. Yeah, but it's still installing. This is rough. Rough, rough, rough. Take that back for me. All right. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Oh, looks familiar, doesn't it? We should have a nice, strong hotspot connection here. So if you'll just bear with me, we should be on our way here in a minute. Let's just see if we can get Google to load. Thanks, everybody, for bearing with me while we figure out this internet situation. Apologize for the technical difficulties. Yeah, do you have a dongle for it, though? Yeah. We're going to try to get an Ethernet dongle here because we're living the dongle life. Just out of curiosity, how many people in the room here are currently considering integrating Impact into their app? If you can just like raise your hand, if that's something you're curious about, great. And like, if you're in the NFT space, can you raise your hand? Like, what percentage would we say are in the NFT space? What about like DeFi, refi? Okay, okay. And anybody sort of in like the portfolio or wallet space? Portfolio tracking or wallet space? All right, cool, cool, cool. That's very helpful. That'll be fun for our. What? No, just show. We've got 90 minutes. Any luck with a dongle? Okay. Annie? just not having it. Sure. Oh, wait, here we go. Come on. All right. Come on. Thank you. Okay. At long last. Wee-oo. All right, welcome to our code sandbox. This is a fun little environment that we've built for you guys. All right. Over here on the left, you can see, well, first off, let me tell you how to get here in case you ever want to get back to here. All right. No, that's the same URL. Wow, the Ethernet flying. Oh my gosh, I feel whole again. Okay, so if you're ever wondering about how you can explore examples for your own Eng team, or if you want to kick this to your developer and be like, this is your problem, my dude, all right, explore examples will take you to this great code sandbox that we've built, all right? It will show you exactly how to integrate the Endaoment SDK straight into your app, all right? And exactly how we've integrated it here in these examples. Of course, styling and implementation is entirely up to you. I'm going to hide that off to the side for now, just to kind of showcase like what the barest bones version of this would look like, okay? So here's sort of feature number one is easy and quick searching of nonprofits and funds across the endowment ecosystem. So for example, if we wanted to find something like, can I get it like, who's got a oh, no, you can't. No, you're not allowed to do that. That's criminal. Are we having fun yet, guys? This is great. Oh, boy. Yeah. The decimator. We're still there. Hello, decimator. Bam. Huzzah. Hit me. Hey. All right. We're back. Okay. So, anybody got a favorite nonprofit in the house? Yes? So we'll toss it in. Denver Food Rescue. Just so you know, this is a very live demo. Whoa. Hello. All right, so here's Denver Food Rescue showing up nicely with its description and its logo. Now, obviously, we've left some styling to be desired here. And, if you want to see how our design team really likes to roll, you can head over to app.endaoment.org. But this is actually the exact same information as what we have on app.endaoment.org. So if we go and take this EIN here and go to app.endaoment.org/orgs/the EIN of this organization, there it is, Denver Food Rescue, right? But as you can see on the screen, this is actually not deployed yet. So this is an organization that hasn't been onboarded and nobody's given to it yet. And so what we actually need to do is to deploy this organization's smart contract address. So the escrow address that we create for a nonprofit is yet to exist for Denver Food Rescue. And so what we do is we go out, and you have two ways of doing this. You can either do it through the app, but as we were talking about earlier, you can also do org deployments through the SDK. So if we search for this guy, you can see we have the Denver Food Rescue, and the SDK formats up the contract data object, the transaction data object, in order to be able to deploy the Denver Food Rescue. Now, this is a one-time setup action, and over time, this will happen less and less often, right? We're basically trying to what we call organization mine, right? We're basically like encouraging users to come in and deploy nonprofit addresses so that the org can be onboarded into the broader Ethereum ecosystem. So if we wanted to deploy this org, This SDK example allows us to connect with MetaMask. Oh boy. And what you can see is that deploying one of these contract addresses is, depending on gas prices, anywhere between like $5 and $25. So right now it's coming in right around 16 bucks. And we'll do this fast because we're feeling aggressive. And away it goes, okay? And now as we wait for that transaction to clear, what's happening is we're deploying the smart contract address that is specifically created for the Denver Food Rescue. In fact, we're using Create2 to take the EIN of the organization. Oh, boo! Oh, this is what I get for doing a live demo. We'll do the deployment here instead. So what's happening here is we're taking the EIN of the organization, we're feeding it in as the salt for the contract creation. And when we feed that EIN as the salt, it creates a unique contract address that is specifically connected to the tax ID of that nonprofit organization. So you can always come back and check against the sort of bytes 32 hash of the org EIN, which is a sort of readable function call on the contract, to be able to check on whether this organization is actually the right one, whether this contract address is the right one for the organization that you want to support. And so as this transaction goes through, great, success, love that. In fact, this transaction didn't come in at 16 bucks, but came in at $7.45. So oftentimes, MetaMask will overestimate, and now we have a deployed smart contract address for the Denver Food Rescue. And when we come back to the SDK, if we were to search for that again, we now see that we have a deployed contract address for the Denver Food Rescue, which means it's eligible to receive some donations. So the last example that we wanted to show you here today for the SDK was about how to actually format a gift to a nonprofit. So if we take this, paste in our EIN right here, right? And let's say we want to give 0.01 ETH, okay? If we generate the swap and donation transaction data, it will go out, use our swap wrapper. We've now called to Uniswap, found the optimal route for that ETH to get swapped into USDC. And if we send out this swap and donate transaction, we'll actually be giving $16 and change to Denver Food Rescue. Huzzah! Yeah. So this is going out. And I swear if it doesn't work. Oh my God. Yeah, it does. So clearly something's up with the examples. This is why we demo it in live in prod on mainnet. But as you can see, the SDK is going out, formatting this contract call, building us a transaction that will allow us to take in the ETH, swap it to USDC in one atomic transaction, and then send that USDC to the contract address in question, at which point our staff at Endaoment takes care of the rest. We go off and contact the organization, get their preferred form of payment, whether that's a wire payment or a USDC wallet address, and process that gift to them in the way that they would like to receive it. Receipts are generated automatically. Alerts for the nonprofit are generated automatically if they've already supported it and sort of given us their contact information. But yeah, just very, very excited about this functionality, and I promise you we'll be correcting whatever bug we're running into here on the multi-call. So thank you for your patience. Okay, so if we come back to developers.endaoment.org, that's the examples here for the SDK. If you're curious to read the GitHub documentation, this is a public open source repo that has a bunch of information about how to get started, examples about how to use it, different sort of error calls, things to look out for, things to be aware of. But in general, everything you need here is in the GitHub documentation. We also have it made nice and beautiful here in our docs.endaoment.org. This is the same information as what's available on GitHub, so if you're interested in learning more. Yeah, it's just our day, isn't it? We're going to try this again. Bang. No, we're not going to do it. You're not going to cooperate, mister? Here, fishy, 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 fishy. Oh, my goodness. Whew. What's going on? What's going on? Okay, so here's what I want to do. I'm going to audible because technology is not my friend today. What? Yeah, so what I want to do is kind of open this up to questions from the audience. I'm going to abandon the projector. This is more or less very straightforward, and we really wanted to, I'm going to get out of the light because I can't see anybody. We really wanted this to be as easy for you to integrate as possible and as like flexible and creative as possible. And so what we were hoping to do for the rest of the session was to hold a little workshop where we split up into 3 groups, where some people were working on like sort of splitter implementations, thinking about splitter implementations, protocol integrations, like different apps that you could possibly build with this, right? Another section of the group was going to be spending time thinking about more like personal finance, like how do we encourage people in the crypto ecosystem to start thinking about philanthropy when they think about their broader portfolio, right? So many people who spend all their time on Zapper or wherever to go check on the balance of their wallet. How do we put philanthropy right in front of them and educate them about what they're doing? And the third sort of vertical that we wanted to talk about was also just like analytics and tracking and elevating the story of the philanthropy that's happening on chain, because I think it's one of our best use cases, one of our best examples of the value of this technology. And so what I want to do instead of breaking out into those groups is just kind of lead a discussion or a question and answer session. If you guys have technical questions about what we're doing, if you have sort of implementation questions, myself, Brusha, Day are here from the Endaoment team, and we would love to sort of hear your ideas, your thoughts, what you want to spend time on, and yeah, just kind of open up the floor to you guys. Thank you all so much for being here and for working with us through technical difficulties. Sometimes this is how it goes, but we're really, really excited about these tools and really curious to hear like what you guys want to do with them so that we can support you.
Do we have a second microphone? We do. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hey, thanks. Hey, man. Live demos are hard, so well done powering through that. Hey, my name's Brian. I'm from Loa Labs. I worked with like 40 or 50 not-for-profits in Australia and New Zealand in my last role. And I was looking through the endowment register, and I couldn't find anything by like their ACNC number. It seemed like it was EIN registered charities only. Is there like a roadmap for bringing in other charities? Or I missed the first like 10 minutes, so you might have covered that. But I'm curious of how to onboard a charity that's not already in your database.
So, the Ethereum community is inherently global, right? And this is a question we get all the time, right? Because not everybody lives in the States, and people have backgrounds and things that they want to support from a broad range. The problem is the regulatory architecture. It's very touchy. The U.S. is very touchy about what international nonprofits you can support. So we are a U.S. nonprofit, right? We're a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. And if you as a 501c3 tax-exempt, if Endaoment as a 501c3 tax-exempt organization wants to give money to another nonprofit organization, it has to be a 501c3, or it has to go through what's called either equivalency determination or expenditure responsibility. These are basically nonprofit jargon around, are you the same thing as a 501c3, but in a different jurisdiction? And there are actually API providers who provide data feeds of ED or ER certified nonprofits. And one of them is called Global Giving. And we're about halfway through the integration process there. Currently sort of talking with them about contracts and terms, but also about like flow of funds and exactly what we're going to support and how those contracts get deployed. They have about 3,000 to 5,000 nonprofits and another 3,000 to 5,000 sub-projects that exist for international nonprofits around the world who are doing work that sort of meets the criteria of the 501c3. I think that's like a first half of this year problem if everything goes right around the commercial negotiation. But once it does, it's going to run through the exact same architecture. So it'll just go from 2,600 nonprofits that are deployed, well now 2,601, including Denver Food Rescue, shout out. But we'll see that number start to climb. There are effectively like 35, there are 1.5 million nonprofits that are registered as 501c3s in the US. From our analysis about those 1.5 million, about 35,000 of them get 99% of the donation volume each year. Right? So big power law distribution on who's raising money. And so our hope is to actually come out and start incentivizing people to deploy those 35,000. And that also, like to us, those 3,000 to 5,000 that Global Giving has will represent a large amount of international volume as well. And so I'm hopeful that those 40 to 50 that you work with will get covered that way. And stay tuned. Also, some of those organizations are on the giving block. And just like a little alpha leak, just keep your ears to the ground. For Tuesday this week, there may or may not be some sort of spiciness to share. So yeah, hang tight. Any other questions from the audience? Suggestions, requests? Do we take a fee? Yes, we charge the fund in question a fee. So every one of our smart contract addresses are effectively a fund. Either it's a donor advised fund, right? So that's one individual giving to a pool effectively, right? They put assets into that pool. We charge the fund 1.5%, right? So same with the community fund, right? That's multiple people making decisions about grant making. We charge a community fund 1.5%. When you give straight to an organization address, that is a fund that is a single issue or single beneficiary fund address. And that single beneficiary is the nonprofit in question, right? And so we take the same 1.5% fee. People, depends on what we're talking about. For the donor advised fund and the community field of interest fund, we take 50 basis points on the way in and 100 basis points on the way out. That way we are incentivized to get users to actually operationalize their donated capital for nonprofits that actually need it. In the case of the single beneficiary funds, so the nonprofit contract addresses, like the one that we just deployed for the Denver Food Rescue, that is the whole cycle in one hit. So like the money's coming in and it's going right back out. So we charge the full 1.5% in one swoop. Just to give you a sense of like competitive pricing there, and given Classy, the Giving Block, any of the major what are called payment facilitators in the nonprofit space, they charge between 3% and 5% in general. part of why we're able to offer like 50% lower fee is because we're running in this entirely on-chain infrastructure that allows us to automate a lot of what these other organizations have to build large teams to process. So from our perspective, we're really, really competitive when it comes to fees. And yeah, it's really cool to be able to do that. And really what we're playing for is scale, right? We're playing to get as many dollars into the hands of nonprofits as possible. And that's when we have the revenue to be able to support hiring more people like Day and Brusha. And what we use that 1.5% for is to hire people to go out and make sure that we deliver this money to nonprofits on time, quickly, and compliantly, and with proper sort of like vetting and ED stuff. Yeah, so let me repeat the question for everyone. Is Endaoment just one large DAF, and then every DAF inside of it is a sub-DAF kind of thing? Or is it like, what's the sort of relationship? That's the question, right? So community foundations, but 501c3s is one thing, right? A church can be a 501c3, but that doesn't make them a community foundation. A community foundation has to be a public charity. And a public charity basically means that a certain percentage of your inbound fundraising dollars have to come from a certain level of diversity, right? So you can't have one donor coming in and giving all the money to the organization. And community foundations and public charities were built specifically to offer this kind of like aggregated philanthropic financial services to donors, right? It's kind of this, you're right to sort of infer that it's like a meta DAF. We like to think of like community foundations as very decentralized, right? It's like we have 300 plus donor advised funds, each of whom make independent decisions about where they want to grant to. And it's like, we don't have any, all we say is that organization representative of our ethics? And our ethics are very broad on purpose, so that like the broadest range of nonprofits can be supported. And so that's kind of how we view ourselves, as like kind of coming out the gate as a DAO, not to mention that like, we're built on smart contracts, and we use decentralized software and services to power all of our stuff, and we have multi-signature wallets as our board of directors. There's all these things and sort of progressive decentralization that's happening at Endaoment. But yeah, no, you're right to sort of think of it as like a meta home for DAFs, right? Public charity community foundations exist to hold sub-accounts that are donor-advised funds or community field of interest funds or individual beneficiary funds. And so Endaoment and the contract ecosystem that we have is meant to sort of be representative of that broader public charity. Not meant to be, like it is, yeah.
Hi, I'm Isaac with Zelic Blockchain Security. I'm just going to be a little bit of a devil's advocate here. So say I'm like the president of Americans Against Ethereum, right? Is there anything I can do to make sure no one opens an endowment under my like nonprofit? Thank you.
If an organization reaches out to us and asks us not to list them publicly, we have on the interface side the ability to hide that smart contract address. The protocol is effectively trustless. There is the ability for the board of directors to basically flag a contract address as I think ineligible is the term that we use. This is primarily for organizations like the Ku Klux Klan is a 501c3, right? And like, by and large, like, we want Endaoment to be decentralized, but also a reflection of the community's values. And so as far as sort of like turning off the trustless donation capability, that's at the discretion of the board of directors of Endaoment, right? And that allows us to prevent funneling capital to hate groups effectively. And you can read our policy on that. We've been very transparent about it, and we haven't had very many run-ins with it. We've had a few kind of trolly donors who come and want to give to like crisis pregnancy centers, which is like where they harass people who are going into Planned Parenthood to get an abortion. Like we've sent that to the board. Board says this doesn't fit our values. We're not going to support this donation, right? And ultimately, when you give to Endaoment, the money is no longer yours. It's Endaoment's, right? It belongs to the DAO now. And the board of directors holds the multi-signature wallet that's permissioned to determine what actually is allowed to be a recipient of endowment dollars. And you, as the donor, retain what are called advisory privileges. That's the legal term for it. And advisory privileges basically means recommend what you want to recommend. Tell us where you want to give to. And as long as it doesn't run afoul of our values at the board level, we won't block it, right? Like, and as long as they're in good standing with the IRS, as long as you get no benefit from the transaction, right? Like you sign a message when you make a grant from a donor advised fund that says, I get no personal benefit from this donation. But like if you're, for your example, right? Like if you're the president of, IHateEthereum.org, right? You can ask us to take it off, but it's up to the board whether they disable the contract address. And every organization, before they receive the payout of the funds that they've received, has the opportunity to say, I don't want this money. For instance, before the merge, the National Resources Defense Council got like a couple $1,000 from one of our donors, from one of our funds. And they were not comfortable with the environmental implications of the Ethereum blockchain, despite where we now are today. And so they rejected the grant. And so the organization always has the power to reject a grant from another organization. And really, that's all Endaoment is ever doing. We're just doing it using smart contracts, right? And that's what's exciting to us, is like we're not really trying to remake the wheel here. We're just doing it in a way that's far more transparent, super composable to developers, and like able to accept this new asset class in all of its different forms, whether that's NFTs or, long tail shitcoins or, ETH itself.
Hi, Pete. Hi. You said the fee is 1.5%. Is that like all the way to the wire transfer to the nonprofit?
So we use Circle as our payouts provider, and Circle and Endaoment have negotiated a reduced wire fee. So we pass on the cost of the wire fee to the org. It's $15, and that is separate from the 1.5% that we charge to the fund. Mm-hmm. It's part of the incentive for an organization to adopt a wallet and set up their own either Circle account or Coinbase account or some mechanism for them to off-ramp USDC, because we don't charge anything to send them USDC, right? So if they're claimed, we have these organization contract addresses, right? There's a process for them to come and claim them, in which we set either a wallet address or the Circle destination master wallet address as the recipient for all donated funds. And if they claim it with their own wallet address, we just send them the full balance of their contract. Because by the time it hits their contract, the fund has been charged, the granting fund has been charged 1.5%. Like whatever's left on that contract is theirs. And it's either like, if you want to go the wire route, like we have this sort of inescapable fee that Circle charges us, and it's $15.
Do you batch it?
We will we batch for individual organizations. So like some of them will choose to sit with, sub $1,000 on the contract until they get to $1,000, and then they're like, okay, this is 15 basis points now, right? Because we're getting an $1,000 wire, right? And it really, most people are giving, like the average donation size, somewhere like 14K, something like that. So, like most of these orgs that we're paying out, they're taking in a couple $1,000. And at that point, when they're comparing, well, I would have had 3 or 5% of this transaction eaten if they got processed through my payment facilitator, and now I'm getting either 100% or maybe 99% or 99.5% or 99.9% of the value. Like, it's a no-brainer to them, and it really hasn't been a huge problem for nonprofits. But we would love to drive that down to 0 so that we can start to support much smaller donations. I think what's exciting about the developer tools that we've put out here this week is that this is infrastructure for people to do like sort of commercial level donations, right? Where it's happening at the commerce level, where thousands of transactions are adding up to much larger donation amounts. And that's like why we're here and why we're excited about this, is because of the opportunity for it to be like, 1 million donations of $1 rather than one whale coming in and dropping down, 1,000 ETH on an organization.
And is anyone doing like streaming, like donations to different, like you said, you can follow people's donations, right? Some people are public. So you could almost have it like where you could follow someone's donations and give an equal percentage based on what they're doing. You get all that through the API, all that.
Yeah,
data.
I mean, like, just having composable end addresses for nonprofits opens up a whole development play space that, like, we're kind of like tweaking about.
Yeah.
Because, like, the opportunities for like automated quadratic support, like of nonprofits based on how many different donors are supporting them versus how much they're getting donated to. Streaming payments, we've been working with the 0x Splits team about integrating the SDK into the 0x Splits interface so that people can come in and like say like, okay, I'm splitting this with my friend and 1% of everything we do is going to this nonprofit that we love, right? Like, and I think you're seeing the same thing we're seeing, which is like, there's a whole tip of the iceberg here. And then there's the whole rest of the iceberg, which is like, what happens when robust streaming payment protocols are out there and you can just set an endowment contract address as the recipient for a stream, right? Or what happens when a DAO takes a percentage of its treasury, locks it up in a TWAP that pays out to a nonprofit, and that's their corporate social responsibility program, entirely on chain and totally auditable by the DAO, right? And those are the kinds of potentials that brought us here today to sort of talk to you guys about. And that was exactly the kind of conversation that we wanted to have. And it's great to hear you kind of like arriving at that idea yourself. Yeah.
I live in a small town and there's a bunch of small nonprofits, and it'd be really cool to kind of put them all on chain, and then like I could donate like instead of my $20 a month to NPR, I could just have like $20 a month to split across like a basket of small town nonprofits or something like that.
Yeah, we couldn't agree more. And in fact, there's nothing stopping you from going out and deploying those nonprofits right now.
Yeah.
And we actually have a program here at Denver this whole week, where we're doing merch for deploys. So if you deploy a certain number of nonprofits, you can get a tin of endowments, for example. In fact, there are stickers on your table right now, and some of you already have some endowments. We'd be happy to give everyone here some endowments, but we also have some uber rare, extra rare Endow fanny packs. This one's well worn. Yeah, you've had this for a minute. Yeah, this has been to the Amazon, and it's indestructible. Okay, but we have more of these for people who deploy many orgs. I think we're going with 5, right? If you deploy 5 orgs, we'll hook you up with a bag. So you can batch those. We have only done it for specific partners who are doing bulk deploys. We will probably roll out the bulk deployer as like a front-end interface that you can use within the next couple of weeks or months. It's just we're like kind of battle testing it right now. But yes, you can bulk deploy. There is a bulk deployer smart contract. You can submit multiple EINs to it, and it will go off. And yeah, no, we actually just did a batch deploy of about 1,600 orgs 2 weeks ago. Do what?
You had some data for the nonprofits that look like you're probably pulling that from somewhere else. Are you also getting geolocation for those nonprofits?
Yeah, so we give back the city and state and zip, I believe, in the API. we're pulling all of this information from GuideStar, Candid's GuideStar. They are like the industry-leading API provider, right alongside Charity Navigator is the other one here. And with the conversation we were having earlier about global giving is like a similar one as well, right? Where we're getting a data struct, some form of model from these API providers that's like, here's name, description, EIN, website, contact, financials, location. So, and that's just ripped straight from their tax filing. So we're just taking what the government releases publicly, what is like sort of mandated to be released publicly by the government, and putting it into a really beautiful interface.
And if I go to use your API, I'm basically getting access to that kind of in the background, that other API with all that information. Okay.
Exactly.
Going over there.
Go, Day, go.
Oh,
Run,
there we go.
Day,
Question
run.
in the back.
Run.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm building a startups for people who don't have the money to donate to try to contribute their volunteering hours in exchange for donations. For example, one of the adoption case that we're building is kids and their parents. So kids contribute volunteering hours, and the parents will help them to donate because they contribute 3 hours of volunteer work, and the parents promise the kids to donate whatever amount of equivalent dollars for them. So what kind of narratives that you can imagine I can present to these kids and parents if, let's say, we adopt this blockchain solution of proceeding with this transaction more easily in a blockchain world?
Yeah. First off, congratulations. That's a great idea. And what it sounds like to me is that you're starting up a nonprofit in and of itself. And I would encourage you to think of it as a nonprofit. The concept of giving time in exchange for donations is inherently tax exempt. I think you would have no problem getting a tax exemption yourself for the mission of this organization. And then ultimately you would be able to fundraise using these same tools. Right, you would be just like the Denver Food Rescue. You would be, the donate your time nonprofit, and I think that would be really awesome to see you kind of take that from 0 to 1, and us to be able to support your crypto-based fundraising by having a profile on Endaoment and having a smart contract address that you can have people send any asset to, and then we'll take care of getting it into dollars, and then you can use it to run your operations. I would say outside of that, it sounds like there's lots of opportunities for you to track the kind of volunteering that's happening. And that's a little bit more of less financial use case for a smart contract protocol, but maybe there's a protocol in there somewhere. But I just applaud you for taking the leap and starting up something like that. That sounds awesome. And we do this thing called fiscal sponsorship from time to time. Fiscal sponsorship is when a new startup nonprofit is just trying to get off the ground. You borrow the tax exempt status of an established nonprofit. So in your case, it would be Endaoment fiscally sponsors your project so that you can operate as a tax exempt 501c3 before actually going through the application process. And that would allow you to fundraise using crypto and fundraise tax exempt using dollars or stocks or whatever, credit cards, right? And then you would sort of have kind of like an incubator-incubatee relationship where when you're the sponsored project, it's like the sponsoring organization is kind of like putting an umbrella over you that says, we think this is a nonprofit and we're going to kind of stick our neck out for you and help you do your reporting and help you pay the people that you need to pay and help provide fundraising endpoints for people to be able to donate tax-free to this new up-and-coming nonprofit. Yeah, we do that right now. Our most famous one was Constitution DAO. We were actually the bidding entity on Constitution DAO. So we do that for Lex DAO, Lex Clinic. We fiscally sponsor Lex Clinic. They're now tax exempt. Other Internet, if you know the Other Internet folks, they're a fiscal sponsored project of Endaoment. And so if you are sort of working on something in the crypto space that you think is an impact DAO, right? Something that has some sort of charitable bent to it, or research bent to it, or educational or religious bent to it even, we're eligible to be a fiscal sponsor, and it's something we love doing. It's like how we kind of do more grassroots community organizing by providing our advantage of being a 501c3 to other established communities. It depends on how you go about setting up the entity. In the case of like Lex Clinic, they are a TUNA, so they're a trustless unincorporated nonprofit or association. So they don't have an EIN because they're an UNA. But you know, if you are a nonprofit B Corp in California, you set that up first, you get an EIN, and then you're not tax exempt yet, so you come to Endaoment, you say, hey, I want a fiscal sponsorship so that I can be tax exempt. And that's where that comes in. So it can happen both ways. You know, we've done things like toy drives that way, like with NFTs, where NFTs are raised for a toy drive, and we sponsor the multisig that deploys the NFT contract so that they don't get exposed to income tax because it's all getting donated anyways. Yeah, we love that stuff. That's our jam. And we kind of got thrown in the deep end with Constitution DAO, and now we feel pretty comfortable with like anything because it's normally smaller than Constitution DAO.
So they are scraping the data from people's Apple Watch.
They use Juicebox to raise the funds. Constitution DAO used Juicebox to raise the funds, but basically Sotheby's doesn't acknowledge a multi-sig wallet as a bidding entity, and they had no legal entity structure, and so they approached us about being their fiscal sponsor, and then what happened was basically we fiscally sponsored Constitution DAO. That means we're then liable for like the outcome of that funding. We built like a conditional fiscal sponsorship based on winning the auction, so that like we would be sort of the sponsor for the auction, and if we won, and if we didn't win, it dissolves and the money goes back. And we love the Juicebox team. They are family at this point, and yeah, that was like an incredible experience and like a great example of like how do we start thinking about how like this regulatory architecture that we've put together with the on-chain familiarity is really powerful. And now what we're doing is we're reinforcing it with developer tools, right? So that those integrations become more seamless.
Hi, Isaac again. So I'm curious about if there's any sort of, if you guys offer any sort of insurance to donors or organizations, say if something like went wrong with Endaoment, if there was like a hack or an exploit and you guys lost funds from contracts, how do you guys like plan to deal with that if that were to happen?
Have you ever tried to insure a crypto company? This isn't a trap. It's so hard. We have insurance. We have directors and officers insurance. But getting underwritten for cyber theft and cybersecurity is basically impossible. We've had maybe 5 different brokers of record take this out to both the U.S. and international markets over 2 years, and it's next to impossible to get underwritten for cyber E&O and cyber theft and cyber crime. We've been audited multiple times. Every time we roll out new smart contract product, we get audited. We've also been financially audited. We're currently in the final process of an independent third-party financial audit, something that not even FTX ever apparently did. And yeesh. And that's required by the state of California. After you raise $2 million, you have to get your financials audited by an independent third party. So we take operational security and contract security and insurance really, really seriously. Getting more insurance is always up there on the priority stack. We've had moments where like somebody's made a donation where they broadcast like $1.5 million worth of ETH to the Uniswap, auto router, and it gets MEV'd like immediately. and it slips to the max slippage, and then they're like, where did $30,000, $50,000 of this donation go? And we have a treasury to sort of make people whole on that front, and we have a record of making people whole on that front. But in general, this is why we operate in stablecoins. This is why we split everything up amongst hundreds of smart contract addresses so that there isn't as many single points of failure. We've really tried to architect the system in a way that lets me and the team sleep well at night.
18-factor authentication,
yeah.
Everything.
Excess amounts of two-factor authentication, but no system's perfect, right? And I think we'll keep working to make it more secure over time, but so far, so good. Yeah. It's been a real journey trying to get insured.
And if anyone would like to insure us.
Any other questions? Can I get a time check? All right, 2:15. That's great. We're here all week. What? Okay, two things before we wrap. One is we have an Impact Happy Hour on Thursday from 4 to 6. So if you're at Shelling Point and you're feeling kind of tired and you want to get out of there, come to Bruto. We have a little sign here, and if the projector was up and running,
you can go look on the
it's
table.
also on the table over there. You can see our full calendar.
Oh, and our Twitter, yeah,
for the week.
At Endaoment.org. If you're not following,
yeah,
us.
the Happy Hour, the Impact Happy Hour, is happening on Thursday afternoon, and also we are in the process of pulling together our first grant program for developers. So if you are interested in getting financial support for developing on Endaoment, we would love to hear about what you're looking to build and start talking about how we can support you. And always, you can find more at developers.endaoment.org or follow us on Twitter at endaoment.org. Please come see us here at the merch table in the back, or we'll be at the Regenlandia in the main ETH Denver building, and we'll have a booth there. Or, just find anybody in an endowment sweater, and we'd love to give you some mints and help you deploy a nonprofit or 2 or 5 or 10. And just really appreciate everybody coming out and hearing us out and, weathering some technical difficulties. So thank you, y'all, and have a great rest of your week.